On November 30th, 1935, a man died because of a bad liver due to alcoholism. He was a writer, but not really that famous, publishing around 5 books. But when his place was searched post-death, a trunk was discovered full of unpublished hidden work with more than 25,000 pages. And it's this trunk that made him famous. In this video, we're going over the life and philosophy of Fernando Pessoa, the man who never lived. Pessoa was born in Lisbon, Portugal in 1888. After his father died while he was young, his mother remarried and the stepfather's job led him to move to South Africa. So already at a young age, we're seeing a lot of change and instability. During his education, he started experimenting with pseudonyms when writing, and this decision would change the way he wrote forever. You see, Fernando Pessoa may just be one guy, but within him, he created more than 70 other personalities. And no, this is not a multiple personality disorder thing. He simply invented people with their own unique lives, their own unique philosophies, their own thoughts. You have people like Alvaro de Campos, Alberto Caeiro, and Bernardo Suarez, all existing within this one man, and all writing their own works. When he returned to Lisbon, he never left. Why would he when he created a whole new world and all new people within himself? Plus, Lisbon is just a beautiful place. I actually ran into Pessoa myself while I was there. It was the summer of 2022. I was on a law school trip to Spain, but wanted to visit Portugal. I was at a disco club at 2 a.m. cause clubs in Europe open super late, and I was dancing with this one girl whose name was a verb combined with a noun. That's all I'll say on that. But I'm walking back to my hotel drunk, stumbling over myself, and I see him. Or rather, I come across a statue of him outside a coffee house, and take a photo with him. Pessoa is just so big over there, and yet here in America, I barely knew about him. So you may be asking, why did you title this video The Man Who Never Lived? Are you just going to reveal by the end that this guy never existed? Well, stay tuned, cause we'll get into that. Now, Pessoa wrote a lot on a lot of different subjects. He does have a collection of philosophical essays on things like free will and metaphysics, but you know what? We're going to do something a little different here. Instead, we're going to look at his most famous literary work, The Book of Disquiet. The Book of Disquiet is written by one of Pessoa's created characters, a man named Bernardo Suarez. Suarez works as a bookkeeper at an office, and while the book does have sections that read like a diary, the majority of the book is filled with various thoughts, some of which are filled with very interesting philosophical ideas. Some of these ideas are wild and sometimes contradictory, but I promise you that these little thoughts are extremely fascinating. But the question should be asked, are these Pessoa's own thoughts or the thoughts of this character, Bernardo Suarez? Although it's technically Bernardo's diary, I think we can really find Pessoa himself bleeding into Bernardo's persona, and nothing illuminates this better than the preference of dreams and writing to actual reality. I've never done anything but dream. This, and this alone, has been the meaning of my life. My only real concern has been my inner life. See what I mean? We could see parallels to Pessoa's own life, how he created these lives and scenarios on the inside, but honestly lived a fairly mundane and ordinary life on the outside. Now, we might feel the urge to tell Pessoa to go touch grass and go out there and live, but Pessoa makes some compelling arguments for this more inward, dreaming life, rather than outside living. For starters, the outside world is unpredictable and can be harmful. It can throw challenges our way and really demoralize us. But when you value your inner life rather than your outer life, the impact of those outside troubles are lessened. The truly wise man is the one who can keep external events from changing him in any way. To do this, he covers himself with an armor of realities closer to him than the world's facts, and through which the facts, modified accordingly, reach him. This is going to sound really stupid, but it reminds me of an episode of SpongeBob where Patrick is copying everything SpongeBob does, and SpongeBob thinks to himself, at least I'm safe inside my mind. There is a certain security there, if you can control it and be as creative as Pessoa. This is coupled with the fact that he's kind of playing God in a sense. He's creating whatever he wants and he's able to do it in peace. In my imagination, I line up the characters, so alive and dependable, who occupy my inner life, and this makes me feel cozy, like sitting by a warm fire in winter. I have a world of friends inside me, with their own real, individual, imperfect lives. This is what I mean by Pessoa being the man who never lived. Like, yeah, obviously he lived and had to do things in the external world, but he placed such a high emphasis on his inner world that the outer world, the actual living, was kinda insignificant. So that's just one of the goodies that can be found within the Book of Disquiet. But again, it's a scattered mess of random thoughts, so I'd like to share some other philosophically interesting ideas that come up. But here's a question for you guys. Do you guys like nature? You know, like trees and wildlife and mountains, that sort of thing? Sure, we think it's very pretty and special to experience, but why is this? Pessoa's character believes that this is because he lives in the city, the artificial, and his appreciation of nature exists only because it can contrast with the artificial. More specifically, the city is the new nature. But for me, and perhaps for other people like me, it seems that what's artificial has become natural, and what's natural is now strange. Or rather, it's not that what's artificial has become natural, it's simply that what's natural has changed. Think about primitive people with no cities or man-made things, just existing in nature. Do you think they paused at the wilderness to appreciate its beauty? I mean, maybe, but since they live in it 24/7, they might not have. It's nothing special to them after all. But us in our industrialized areas, we have a higher appreciation for nature because it's not the norm. In terms of aesthetic appreciation, it's not nature versus industrialization, like how it's commonly portrayed, but rather they give beauty to one another by contrast. Artificiality is the best way to enjoy what's natural. Whatever I've enjoyed in these vast fields, I've enjoyed because I don't live here. Another philosophical insight from the Book of Disquiet is Pessoa's thoughts on political revolutionaries and reformers. Now think, what would an inwardly focused philosopher think of people who are trying to change the external? Any guesses? Revolutionary or reformer, the error is the same. Unable to dominate and reform his own attitude towards life, which is everything, or his own being, which is almost everything, he flees, devoting himself to modifying others in the outside world. To fight for change is to be incapable of changing oneself. Now, if you're politically minded, you might say, well, Pessoa, that's nice and all, but we have to address problems in the world. How else are we going to fight evil? Are you saying we should just ignore it? Well, not exactly. Pessoa does think we should fight evil, but he wants us to fight an evil that we can actually have control over, an evil that we see every day. The evil of ourselves. A sensitive and honest-minded man, if he's concerned about evil and injustice in the world, will naturally begin his campaign against them by eliminating them at their nearest source, his own person. This task will take his entire life. There are some other interesting political Pessoa bits, especially when he argues against doing good acts at one point, but let's step away from the world of political philosophy and go into existentialism. In the world of Sartre and Camus, I think Pessoa has one of the best expressions of what it's like to be a living human being. And you know, I'm not even going to provide commentary, I'm just going to read you straight up this beautiful piece on an existential life. One day, I don't know which, I found myself in this world, having lived unfeelingly from the time I was evidently born until then. When I asked where I was, everyone misled me, and they contradicted each other. When I asked them to tell me what I should do, they all spoke falsely, and each one said something different. When in bewilderment I stopped on the road, everyone was shocked that I didn't keep going to no one knew where, or else turned back. I, who'd woken up at the crossroads and didn't know where I'd come from. I saw that I was on a stage and didn't know the part that everyone else recited straight off. And without knowing it, I saw that I was dressed as a page, but they didn't give me the queen, and blamed me for not having her. I saw that I had a message in my hand to deliver, and when I told them that the sheet of paper was blank, they laughed at me. And I still don't know if they laugh because all sheets are blank, or because all messages are to be guessed. I mean, that's just beautiful, straight up. If I were a guy who didn't have a full-time job and could make super long videos, I would include so many more philosophical insights written in this beautiful style that are found in this book. But maybe it's good to end here so you all feel motivated to read it yourself. That's another plus. The Book of Disquiet is fairly available, while his philosophical essays are harder to come by. But alas, it's time to say goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to share, like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. Comment below any thoughts you have on Pessoa, and I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day.